I never thought about death before that day. I knew there was such a thing, of course. All of my grandparents were dead before I could even form memories. Death wasn't something I truly thought about outside of Catholic classes around Easter time. But there I was, leaving field hockey practice, being met by my oldest brother Billy saying, "He is dying, Meg. Ryan is going to die." I knew I should have turned around and ran when I saw that he was picking me up. He never picked me up. I would normally catch a ride home with the other players. I instantly knew something was off as soon as I saw him. Looking at my blank stare, Billy repeated, "He is dying. Ryan is going to die." We were still in the parking lot of my high school, and I felt paralyzed. My mind was racing, yet time seemed to stand still. 17-year-olds don't die. It just doesn't happen. My big brother isn't going to die. He couldn't go to school this morning because he was vomiting. It's 2003. People don't die from stomach bugs. However, in one moment, one breath, one blink, I came back to the present and realized that is true. He is going to die, and there's never going back to the person that I was just 1 minute before. It was as if I was entering a new life. I'm the youngest of 5 children, Aaron, Shannon, Billy, Ryan, and then me. Ryan and I were the closest in age. 3 years apart, small enough age difference to share some similar likes and interests, but large enough age difference where we were our own people. He was my best friend growing up and the funniest person I knew. He could charm his way out of any situation. He always included me in playing all of the games with the neighborhood kids. He was always teaching me things. He taught me how to throw a football and hit a baseball and how to get to the next level on Super Mario Brothers. He'd always invite me to ride my bike with him and his friends. One time, he and my older brother Billy took the training wheels off my bicycle when I was only 3 years old because Ryan said I didn't need them anymore. Yes, I did, and I still have the scars to prove it. Even though he was a senior in high school and I was a freshman, he still continued to look after me and made sure his friends did too. I could always count on one of them to say hello to me in the hallway, help me find my classes, and tease me a little along the way. We had lunch period together, and his friends picked the table right next to my friends and me to quote-unquote keep an eye on me, but probably just to take our leftover lunch snacks. That morning before Billy picked me up and told me news that would change my life forever, my mom had woken me up fairly early to tell me that I needed to take the bus to school because Ryan was throwing up and she needed to take him to the hospital. Hormonal and annoyed, I'm sure my reply wasn't so kind, but I did what she said anyway. I got up, went to school, and went to practice as normal. After hearing the news and over uneaten pizza, Billy told me everything he knew. Ryan was throwing up blood. The CAT scan didn't look good, and he was transferred to Children's Hospital. Tests showed he had cancer everywhere. Large masses were found in his stomach, his liver, and his brain. The doctors didn't know what it was, and they didn't have any answers or treatment plans. They'd never seen this cancer in a pediatric patient before. Ryan had adenocarcinoma in his stomach that traveled everywhere. There was no telling how long it had been in his body, but they knew his body was not going to last long here on Earth. That was a lot of news to take in on day 1 of my new life. By day 3 of my new life, my routine was simple. I'd go to school, leave early to visit Ryan, and come home in time for field hockey practice and to do homework. Ryan and I were playing cards when, out of the blue, he said, "You should be a nurse." I laughed and said, "Why?" He replied, "You were made to be one. You ask the nurses all sorts of questions, wanting to know every detail about what they are doing, and you are the most caring person I know." I laughed and said, "I'm just nosy." He put his cards down, looked me in the eye, and in an uncharacteristically serious manner said, "Promise me, you will become a nurse." His tone startled me. He was rarely serious. Even in his current state, he was constantly making jokes and charming all of the nurses who cared for him. I looked at him and said, "I promise, I will become a nurse." By day 7 of my new life, Ryan slipped into a coma, and each person, one by one, got to come to his bedside to say goodbye. When it was finally my turn, I walked towards his bed, grabbed his hand, and noticed he looked so peaceful. I told him how thankful I was to have him as a best friend and brother. I laughed and cried, retelling him my favorite memories. And I noticed he was crying too. I took a big deep breath, gave him a giant hug, and said, "I will never forget you, and I will do just as you said. I will be a nurse, and I won't ever let anyone feel unloved or lonely while I am taking care of them. I won't let anyone die alone." I wiped his tears and gave him one last hug. My time was up, and I needed to leave ICU. Ryan was transferred back to the oncology floor and was extubated. On the morning of day 8, Ryan died peacefully and smiling, surrounded by his family and friends. I tell my story, not just to talk about reflective practice terms, but also because this class has allowed me to open up parts of my past that I would have otherwise kept tucked away. Suffering can be a common theme that we as nurses encounter far too often. I use my past to help me be more empathetic, authentic, and understanding to all whom I have the privilege of taking care of. I hope this autoethnography hasn't made anyone too depressed, but I am thankful that I was able to share my reflection, emotional intelligence, and transformation to the class. My goal was to come across as someone with coherence and who has shown reflective learning. Thank you.